Franz, today we have been awarded with meeting here so that with the help of the Kabbalists we can reach such a strong point of connection that the Creator won't be able to refuse us and He'll help us connect, and this connection, this force, will then be able to increase, to magnify and bring to the whole world's Kli and the whole world. Also, we have the World's Congress coming up titled Connecting to Theirs, none else besides Him, and we learned from our teachers that connection with the Creator is that's only done through prayer. So we will learn how to connect with the friends through the prayer, and how through prayer we can ask for the friends. We have Gabasher's prayers. That's a very strong plea, very strong instrument, and the main thing is not to ask for ourselves, to ask for the sake of connection, to ask for the sake of the friend. We ask the Creator to give us the strength so we can perform all our actions for you, meaning for the sake of the Creator, otherwise meaning if you do not help us, all our actions will be only for our own benefit. That is if not meaning, if you do not help us, all our actions will be only for ourselves, for our own benefit, for we are powerless to overcome our will to receive. Therefore help us be able to work for you. Hence you must help us. This is called do for your sake, meaning do this, give us the power of the desire to bestow, otherwise we are doomed. We will remain, and the will to receive for our own sake. We ask the Creator to give us the strength so we can perform all our actions for you, meaning for the sake of the Creator. Otherwise meaning if you do not help us, all our actions will be only for our own benefit. That is if not meaning if you do not help us, all our actions will be only for ourselves, for we are powerless to overcome our will to receive. Therefore, help us be able to work for you. Hence, you must help us. This is called do for your sake, meaning do this. Give us the power of the desire to bestow. Otherwise, we are doomed. We will remain in the will to receive for our own sake. Rash, I know I want to work before you with no conditions. Even if I don't feel your greatness, I want to believe that you are great and worth serving. I want to serve you unconditionally. Even if I do not feel your greatness, I want to believe that you are great and worth serving. Do not move far from us. Let us understand that it is not moving away, but that you are doing this for our own sake, so we may know that everything you do is all for our sake. Rabash, again, do not move far from us. Let us understand that it is not moving away, but that you are doing this for our sake, so we may know that everything you do is all for our sake. We ask the Creator and say and pray, bring us back our Father again. We ask of the Creator and say and pray us back our Father. O Bash. We'll go to excerpt number 5 from Jonathan via the Galaxy. When the nations of the world govern the quality of Israel in you, and you cry out to me, help with all your heart, then I love you. And only then can I keep all that I promised the forefathers concerning the inheritance of their land. For now you have the vessels to receive my blessing, meaning vessels of bestow workshop. Give us the strength so we can do all our actions for your sake. Give us the strength so we can do all our actions for your sake. Friends, in the first part of the lesson, we will learn from a lesson with Laitman from November 13th, 2003. We are reading the article of Arvut. We are now in item 24, the Arvut article from item 24. Thus, because of the above necessity, the Torah was given specifically to the Israeli nation, solely to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, for it was inconceivable that any stranger would take part in it. Yet because of this, the Israeli nation had been constructed as a sort of gateway by which sparks of purity would flow onto the entire human race throughout the world. and these sparks multiply daily, like one who gives to the treasurer until they are filled sufficiently, meaning until they develop to such an extent that they can understand the pleasantness and tranquility that are found in the kernel of love of others. For then they will know how to shift the balance to the side of merit and will place themselves under his burden, and the sight of sin will be eradicated from the earth. Let's enter the lesson together. As we previously discussed, there's a difference in the entire stature of admission, and there you have all types of souls, and due to the purity, the refinement of a certain kind of soul, they get this special role, this duty of being first in this correction, in grasping this idea of love your friend as yourself, mutual love, mutual guarantee, which is the correction, the conditions, and then the Creator dwells within the vessel, according to the law of equivalence of form, whereupon the vessel or parts of the vessel receive one corresponding to the other, this with that, and all of them are together with the Creator, meaning that to begin with the attainment of our foods must be with the intention to reach adhesion to through this reach, equivalence of form with the Creator, and then the connection between the vessels is in order to bestow upon the Creator, which is in matching with the upper light, and according to the measure of this match, this compatibility, he then dwells within the collective vessel, and in the vessel itself this collective shared vessel that went through the shattering of Adam, and after the shattering there are many parts, and the difference between them is measured according to the of youth coarseness, the magnitude of the shattering, and so it follows that the strongest layer of the shattered vessels certainly undergoes the correction before, rather that the pure, more refined layer goes through the correction before the heavier, coarser vessels, and this is what he speaks of when he mentions the merits of their fathers in the vessels, meaning that they don't need any special big corrections, rather to the contrary, because it's a very small vessel, or relatively speaking, pure vessel, it requires the smallest correction compared to other vessels, and so the purer, the more refined is corrected first, and that's what happened with Abraham, and then these vessels go through a process where they begin to correct. Other than correcting themselves, they correct their incorporation in the discernments of Alpha 1, 2, 3, 4. That's why there are 4 exiles, and 4 exiles. That's not from the words Galat exile, the same way that Zahut, that's pure merit, the merit of the fathers, and also Galat exiles, that's from the Galat, the revelation of the coarseness. What is the exile of Egypt? We see, according to the image of us entering Egypt and incorporating with them, but in truth within that vessel is revealed spiritually speaking a vessel or a lower layer, coarser layer from the incorporation and the shattering, the previous incorporation, and it already exists within this vessel, but now it is revealed. That is called the Galat, the exile or revelation of Egypt, the revelation of the coarseness within the vessel. And so it is with coarseness, the coarsest levels of 1, 2, 3, 4 of that same vessel called Abraham, a pure vessel, but nevertheless incorporating all other vessels, and after that vessel is corrected in its entirety, and all these layers are revealed in it, and that's the slavery in Egypt, enslavement, the exile coming out of Egypt, the reception of their Torah, the shattering of the temple, then the correction of the second temple, then another shattering, then our final exile and our final correction through the incorporation of the same seed of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, but on the highest degree. Yes, but it's still the same revelation, incorporation, correction on the courses level, but of the purest vessel, and that's what we must now correct within ourselves together, and with that we correct all the vessels which are included, incorporated in us due to the integration with the nations of the world, and then joining And after that, or alongside that, well, after that there should come the correction of all the remaining vessel, the great big course, vessel for which the entire shattering of this process occurred. As he says that the Creator wanted to give the Torah to all nations of the world, and he walked amongst them, but then he wanted them to receive it, but they couldn't because it's the complete opposite of the existence of receiving in order to bestow. That's completely opposite, contrary to the nature of the nations of the world. And so he gave Israel, the people of Israel, that so that through participation with the nations of the world gradually, they'll give the Torah to them, relay the Torah to them. And so, meanwhile we are at a stage where we have to complete the correction of the vessel of Abraham of Galg the first, meaning in terms of its correction, and then we'll have to return and be the light to the nations, meaning to correct the and correcting the. That doesn't follow the same pace, the same process as the correction of Galar, because when extracting Galar from the mixture that exists after the ruin, after the shattering from the, then many things are clarified within the true meaning, the correction of, in that the correction, the rather clarification, scrutiny of all the vessels then happens through the incorporation. We have all the four types of vessels after the incorporation, and then when Gagalter and I are corrected, when they finish their correction, by that they actually conclude the correction of all the vessels. Why? Because the Galgalan are corrected. Galg within, that's called the saints among the nations within Galim, that's called the good Gentiles, and which cannot be corrected. From the incorporation, those are the wicked and the harm-doers in the nations. All these layers, all these types of vessels, they are clarified alongside the correction of Galgarter and I, and ultimately they are corrected. So if Israel conclude their final correction, by that they scrutinize and correct other than the heart of stone, other than the wicked and the harm-doers who have no correction through incorporation with the nations of the world, they correct all the other vessels. And also this heart of stone will be corrected as well. So when we say that first we correct, the intention is that the work is upon us to correct ourselves through the incorporation, and then through incorporation the whole world will be corrected. And from this we have to understand that the correction of the world doesn't just begin with us, it also ends, it's also so finalized. And it's not that we have half the work to do here, but all the work from beginning to end is upon the vessels of bestow to do, and the rest of the world participates in this in a relatively passive manner compared to us. This we also learn from the wisdom of Kabbalah itself. We study the correction of all the vessels because the vessel of reception cannot actually do anything by itself, and the vessel of bestow, or only by connecting with the light does it receive this force, this power, and then it can participate with the vessels of reception, and the vessels of reception are corrected by it. And so in essence the work is upon the vessels of bestow to do, even though it seems like a very small vessel, a vessel which has nothing really to it. It needs to be a seeking grace like its original nature, and true its original nature is said, but by incorporating with it now has work to do with its integration, inner integration of our with it, then Galar and itself has just the supporting role. It annuls itself, and also on what basis does it annul itself? On the basis that the part of bestowing it arranges the support, for it gives it the powers to do this. And so it turns out that Israel, the least of the nations, as it is written, they actually must do all the work. And to the extent that Israel don't do this work in practice in this world, the whole world then suffers. The entire world fails to advance towards the desired correction, and the whole world is then in an unsuitable bad state, and there's no one to blame other than Israel. And certainly in our times we see that this is becoming revealed and felt by the nations of the world more and more. They somehow glean not the true spiritual causes but they see the outcomes in this world, that this is how it works. This is how it happens according to the laws of nature. They still don't know the true reason for why it's happening this way. But they see. The fact is that it is as it is. Israel are the cause for all bad things in the world, and this will be revealed to everyone in the future. And, of course, there is no other solution here but to reach correction, because certainly as far as the nations of the world are concerned, the solution is simple: to destroy Israel. We see that from Purim. Already, as said, there is one people here who they don't keep the laws of the king, and there's nothing we can do. We have to destroy them, obliterate them. A final solution, and then everything will be good in the world, because something very simple is being revealed to the world, that this part causes everything bad. It's just not clear that it's causing all this evil, because it's not yet corrected. But it is not actually possible under the laws of nature to destroy this part. None of the wicked ones will ever succeed in that. The greatest, the chief amongst them, was in Purim, because the correction must come about. It's exactly as we learn, or will soon learn in Purim in a more in-depth manner, how exactly this works, because Purim it's corresponding to the end of correction. And there you can see in this struggle, this conflict, all the hints are there. The indications of are how this should all occur in the end of correction. All these things, that's it. But it's revealed. We already see that Israel have no place in this world unless they perform their correction that is upon them to do. This half, the other part Israel, who are here because they have this task, this mission to correct themselves, and by so doing to correct the world. This mission is not understood by Israel because they are within the shattering. They dwell in the shattering, and therefore they cannot understand their mission. And certainly the same for the nations of the world, who are also in an even deeper shattering. And so the pure, the refined part of Israel, those who understand already, who understand that the whole image, the whole picture, they have to disclose this, reveal this to Israel and the nations of the world. They have to reveal to them the cause, the reason for this situation, and to help those who can already participate in corrections. You join in, and by that to fulfill their mission. What? The correction of happens through scrutiny, right? From there, the corrections happen as we learn in the study of the tense field, test by the upper light. The records awaken, and the records, the Shemot, then enter into connection with the light, with the upper light. There you have the Dima, which elevate the Shemot, the records, as man to Zonatilut, and Zonfats begin to then extend it. They extend the correction to Aber and Fatalut, and the correction of Son begins, meaning that they elevate their broken parts, and the broken parts of Son are the souls. How does give confidence to so that can then nullify itself? What does it mean? And correct the, because they're in the chattering together, in the shattering together. And so all the corrections come to them mutually, by them finding that the powers not to use the which is included in Galanaim, talking about the part of the vessel, which is Gal in itself, that is included in the Jewish part, which underwent the shattering and received the part of the yes and impression from the nations of the world. And now it needs to silence the part that was impressed by the nations of the world, meaning everything that pertains to this world, all the mannerisms of their nations, their culture, their goals, everything that pertains to the nations of the world other than Gal, which by their nature are attached to the Creator, and these are the forces of Pinar. So each and everyone who awakens to this work is undergoing a process as we learn. He needs to find in himself the power to raise in importance, to elevate in importance vessels which are pure, closer to the goal, and to join them, so to speak, to live in them instead of the vessels which are more course, and which he sees he cannot yet be in adhesion with towards the goal. And then those vessels he just doesn't use. Those are called the vessels of the nations of the world. The correction is as we learn. It takes the same form, the way it should happen in this world. It's from internality to externality. As we learn from spirituality in the spiritual vessels, it also happens from internality to externality. As Gilgarter and I am are isolated from Ab and Gilgarter and are corrected, fixed in their pure form, and then comes the incorporation, gradually with the in them, and so on. Those are the corrections. That's how they should take place in this world as well. So let's say those who belong to the people of Israel in some way. There are many who you look at and it doesn't appear that they are part of this people. But there are many in the nations of the world who actually do belong to this people, are part of this people. Who knows? We don't know the 12 tribes. We don't know who they are, remained of them. We don't know anything that happened. As that in that process, in that part of history, we know nothing. So the direction we have to go towards is simply to pour out to the whole world the knowledge of, well, what purpose, for what purpose the world was created to begin with. What planned there is, what process does it go through? What out of what does it exist? What forces operate within it? What these forces all lead towards. This knowledge we have to give to the world. And then those who join, they understand, they certainly feel that this is correct. They accept it, so they belong. Well, this is the scrutiny. In effect, they belong to the process of correction, and then they join the process of correction. Then there are those who can't yet. They don't hear. They are more coarse, and the correction will come to them after that, after the more refined layers are corrected. Those who first hear about this mission, this idea, this knowledge, that's it. So the process has to be open and clear to everyone insofar as it's possible to understand, and those who grasp it not only cerebrally, but also in their hearts, that means that his vessels are ready for this, and he joins because he sees that this is it. I belong to this, and as far as we're concerned, these could be people and nations and such segments of the general population that we cannot even imagine would suddenly receive some kind of connection to this, who appear to us entirely, well, very distant from what we call Israel. That's it. Because our history is very, how to say, it's very complicated, complex, because the incorporation, indeed the incorporation, is on a much greater level than we think. And theoretically also this is the question. It's as we learned from the shattering of their vessels, each vessel has to be incorporated with all other vessels. If so, we don't see that in corporality. There is still such a thing called the people of Israel, which is separate from the other nations, other peoples. You have it on your ID, right? Israel Jewish. So what, we didn't go through the shattering first before these are scrutinies that happened after the shattering. I don't want to now say what I think about this, but we see that it's not exactly the same as it appears on the surface level. Also, nationalities is determined by the mother, and you have many things here which are very loose. They don't seem real. There was just some agreement made some time in history where nationality, that's after the mother's nationality, right? We just agreed to that. It's entirely unclear, this whole thing, unclear to us and to the nations, but gradually it'll become apparent. We will study this, we will learn it. But in practice, the outcome of it, that's what I'm saying, that the approach needs to be such that we open up the true picture, the true image of the thought of creation, why the world was created to begin with, and by what. It was created by an upper force. What is the upper force? What is its nature? And the will to receive. How can the will to receive correct itself so as to be like the star? And through what steps does it go through? Through what steps does it go to be corrected to be like the star, and so on? And this process, this image, it's rather simple. And if it becomes clear, there aren't very complicated things here. If we can explain this to the world, this will clarify many, this will explain many things in the world. And those who already connected to this idea, they will be called the true Israel, the spiritual Israel, right? And they, due to the necessity that they will feel that they have to undergo their corrections also in the same method in myself, and a person should relate to himself in the same way. The collective and the individual are the same. There's no difference between how a person corrects himself and how the world corrects itself. It's the same law. Again, because there was the shattering, and in the shattering each part mixed with all other parts. So there's no difference between the process one goes through an individual and the process that the whole world goes through. What does it mean? Who am I going to explain the purpose of creation and all that? You need to explain the purpose of creation and everything that happens here to the whole world externally, and also your inner world internally, so that all your desires, all your urges hear it, and then accordingly you arrange them in the way that each of them can then be oriented towards the general goal. You can't just erase some of the desires. You have to provide them with some answers, some fulfillment, some correction even to those desires that aren't undergoing the actual correction in practice right now. But you have to give them some fulfillment as they are incorporated in other desires in you. There are desires with which you cannot advance towards correction right now, and you have to provide them with some compensation. For example, you have to make a restriction over them, not use them even though you want to use them. So how not to use them despite you wanting to? You have to provide some compensation, some mitigation, some sweetening in the state where they aren't fulfilled. Why do we need to correct the pure? Where are they? They are shattered. They are within the ruins of the vessels of reception. So how do you find them? By separating Galar, and from separate them from the Galg, and I'm included in Galar, and I'm from all that you extract the desires, which are so to speak frozen, which aren't incorporated. What is Galan, the pure Galgalan? They're not incorporated in a hab. There's no up in them and none of them in a hab, but they are inside there, and you have to remove them to extract them, which means to separate and to observe and to study and engage only in them and not the general, or rather toward the general man, all the desires, all the thoughts you extract, only which are ready for action, and you don't have to correct them specifically. You're right. The same way you don't have to correct the heart of stone. You don't have to correct the true gal. But their scrutiny you must perform to separate food, to separate the waste from the food, as we say. Yes, to explain to everyone you said to explain to their masses. To what extent can a cerebral explanation touch the desires of the masses? By us explaining things, we're not just touching upon the externality of this world where that's where we do our work even today, through books, through the media. Yes, it's not a kind of work that is purely informative. By this we're actually bringing about the spiritual correction of the world, so that each and every part of the world receives from above through us the knowledge of the thought of creation. And this is a spiritual action that we're performing. There's no need to think that we're performing some corporeal action here. We're as though laying down the pipes, and through these pipes each and everyone receives some kind of knowledge regarding the purpose of the world, regarding the purpose of mankind, which stem the purpose of the world and the purpose of humanity from the thought of the creation, and by that we tie each and every one to the Creator. We're yet far from doing this actually, but we think that it's worth doing, and we want to do it, and we think that now in the world such understandings, such thoughts are awakening in the world, as we see recent times, and this is an indication that the world is ready with the question, like the question that awakens in us from the suffering: what is the purpose of life? What is the point of our life? So they have the question, what is the point of the dues? And opposite, but they can then receive the answer, what purpose they serve. And especially in these times we can find, and especially in those people who seem to ask this question, those who seem to us to be wicked seemingly, and I say that deliberately, they seem to be wicked, because that question awakens through his natural sense of reality, and he feels that in him. The scribe imagine the soul. In the soul there's a question, what is the point of our lives, but directed towards a different nation, different people, right? But it doesn't matter, so opposite that you can now understand the answer. There are processes here which are occurring very deeply, very powerfully within their world. Very, very strong currents going through the world now, bringing about the mixing of the records from the shattering through all these opinions, which now roam the world, and in the world, in a world with the kind of communications available today. What's happening is you'll soon see how the world gathers around this idea that there's a people here which, and we have this example from Haman, a nation, a people which are intruders amongst all nations, this one nation that we see. We have no other choice but to the correction is to drive them out, and this will soon be in fashion. Every civilized, cultured person will be talking about this, and this will be regarded as a variant, will be very much respected. This is a person who understands how the world is built. He sees, and this he has this desire to correct, to fix the world, to make it better. Just remove, just extract the evil that exists in the world, right, and it'll be very prominent and very clear, scientific, historical, philosophical. It'll be revealed to be a very realistic thing, very proper. The Germans were the most highly developed, most cultured people at the time of the Holocaust, and it's not by chance that this is how this philosophy rose, and it's nothing new. It's from the time of the shattering of the ruin of the temple, and so on. So if such questions are awakening, it's a sign that the world is ready to listen. And within this question, you also have the reason for the question and what needs to be the answer. Yes, the good Gentiles in the nations of the world, what is their role? Everything comes from vessels of bestow, and through vessels of bestow comes the correction. To so, we don't determine the involvement and level of mingling of the vessels of bestow and reception. It follows the law of equivalence of form, without a mass or with a mass, without intentions to bestow or with intentions to receive. It doesn't matter. The law is one law, equivalence of form between the pieces, between the lights and vessels, the sparks in the vessels, the broken vessels, and the surrounding lights. That essentially determines the relationship between them, and we just have to reveal in our only free choice through the group, through connection between groups, through searching and joining of those who are willing to join us. We just have to discover such pieces that are already willing and capable of joining us, joining our groups into our one big group, and that's all. And what is the measure for them? The measure of them joining. The measure of joining, the reason for joining, we don't exactly know what's the process, how it happens, but we'll suddenly discover, as I said, that there are in the world some entire pockets of people who feel they belong to this. Like you'll see among the Jewish people that there are Some who hate this idea and don't want to accept it at all, and they want to destroy you more than some of the nations of the worlds do. So we shouldn't take anyone into account here. Where dissemination and our process has to be that we don't take anyone here into account, and this means that we can't understand this in our own mind. Why is it that during the shattering there's this or that type of response? Why there are such who are against us among our own people, so to speak, and also the other way around there are with us some of those who completely belong to the nations of the world. So we can't do these calculations. The light scrutinize the vessels, and we just need to further unpack this message, this general picture before everyone. And this awareness, it will bring the surrounding lights closer, and they will make the scrutinies all over the world. It's not up to us to get involved in the process itself at all. It's written that even when a sharp sword sits on one's neck, don't despair from the mercy. Meaning we don't know, but in the toughest moment suddenly from that shattering, from the depth of disappointment and despair and hardship and hopelessness and no end in sight, all of a sudden there's a revelation of the path forward, and a teasion and a leap into the light. We have to go completely and totally above reason in this whole matter. Above reason, literally. If I would take the public into account, the world, I would never leave my house. If we start searching for whether the world is waiting for it, whether it will look at us nicely, how can it look at us nicely? To begin with, we have to throw away all of our consideration with them. We just have to worry about one thing as best as we can. We need to look pretty in their eyes. We need to look well for them, but with our own goal, our own mission, never changing that mission. But to be more attractive to them means that they, the poor ones who have a hard time to conceive of our idea, to make it as easy as possible for them to grasp. But other than that, we have to be like iron. That's what's up to us, and that's what I'm doing. And it's well accepted. You can ask Plov how in Moscow before thousands of people spoke to them, and they listened, they heard. There were some in the hall who had no good attitude to me or to Israel or to Kabbalah. But when I explained that yes, there's a difference between us, between you and me, and I'm coming to shed light on this difference, and what's the purpose of the world, why does it exist, and what I have to do in the world, and what you, and why are we in such a status for thousands of years already? Where does it come from, and for what purpose? So they hurt. There's willingness to hear. You see, the problem is out in the open, and they related to it. There was no one yelled. There was no one screaming against me or anything of that sort, meaning they hurt from beginning to end. 90 minutes was the lecture. Then he spoke about their center and so forth, and a simple explanation. This essentially needs to be sort of the motto for us, our message in everything we do. Otherwise, why do you come? I'm coming to tell you about upper worlds. What Forum also said, why would I care how many angels in the heavens and what their name is? You're coming to talk about what's relevant for us, that it's all relevant for us because of a certain purpose, and that the world hears. Is there a difference between the people we call the people of Israel who awakened here, and those who awaken in the nations of the world? We see all over the world that there are people who are awakening. Is there a difference today, let's say, between the Jews and the nations of the world in terms of the quality and quantity of those who awaken to hear this matter, awaken towards spiritual quest, spiritual work? It's still early for us to discuss this. According to what Baram writes at the end of the introduction to the book of Source, certainly we have to start from waking up the people of Israel, meaning what we accept in this world as the people of Israel, not according to the longing for adhesion with the Creator, meaning to look for where are those people just as we do in our global dissemination where we look for this kind of people, doesn't matter what nation they're from. But this is about working inside this nation, and that's what we're now beginning to do especially. And this work we'll find it to be the most difficult. So you're asking that how much it should be a different kind of work as opposed to the nations of the world, or what? What is the difference in terms of the correction? The difference in correction is that those who seemingly belong to the people of Israel, meaning that it says that they're Jews, you have to come to them with this sort of case that you have on them where you're blaming them that they're guilty in advance of being Jewish and not fulfilling their part in this world. What's up to them? So, you come to them with a demand. You approach them with an actual claim, a demand. And certainly these things no one wants to hear. However, with the nations of the world, you approach them with a different task. You say you have to help the Jews carry out the correction that needs to appear in the world through them, and help that with all the things that they need to do towards, meaning you as if ask them for help. You're not blaming them for not making corrections because vessels of perception cannot carry out corrections. If they could, they would receive the Torah as written that the Creator as if tried to give it to each and every one of the 70 nations, and they couldn't. So too, then there's no demand, or you don't blame them for not making corrections after they know what is the process and reason for the thought of creation and everything. After that you can demand from them, but after that you can demand from them participation in it as well. Assistance as written that nations will take the children of Israel on their shoulders and lead them to Jerusalem. So that, yes, and then you'll find that the whole world is ready to participate in everything for the sake of their correction, and those that come to blame us today for being a part that there's no need for. That's exactly what Bissam writes in the end of the introduction to the book of Zohar. It's because we internally determine that through the internality of the Torah, the wisdom of Kabbalah, that meaning the means to reach the purpose of creation, that there's no need for it, and in the same way the nations of the world relate to us writes it in a very obvious way, meaning we determine the attitude to ourselves and generally the amount of suffering or peace, like he writes here, for the entire world. Good. What's lacking in us, this group? That studying, causing us to fail. It's clearly something is missing in us, not them. And as soon as we complete our stage, something will be revealed in them as well. What are we lacking? We're lacking that a Jew like you who has an approach to the people, who comes from within the people, doesn't carry out the goal that's up to him. Isn't it clear what's lacking? Meaning that you have to take yourself and begin doing what you need to do for the sake of the correction. In what respect? No, with no respect, and know what it means just to bring each and every one of your nation and the awareness of what's up to us to do what we have to do. They're not accepting it. Doesn't matter that it's not accepted. You have to do the work without any calculations. You don't understand the outcomes of your work. The outcomes don't need to be seen to our eyes at all. No, the outcomes come in a different way through the world. And don't worry, from working here in this entire little country to awaken the people, you're not going to see results here. But all of a sudden, Americans will begin to talk to each other and it will be accepted around the world. Why? Through our whole incorporation with foreign cultures. Meaning, how do you know where it needs to come from? You have to do what you have to do. That's also what they reply. What do you want from us? Of course, there's such a thing. But what can I do? He answers the same way. Even if he doesn't know all those things, and you who do know, you're also answering that these matters aren't theoretical. They gave them to us so that we carry them out. The Torah isn't something that needs to be studied like philosophy. There's no part of it that has to do with theory. Everything has to do with practice, because it's our life. It's the most general law in the world that includes all the other laws within it. Are we lacking the physical exertion of dissemination or the inner labor of dissemination? We lack both inner internal dissemination among us for ourselves and dissemination in the group, that each one towards the group and the group towards each one, and also outside the group towards the nation. People both internally, meaning we want this to happen in thought. We think about it. This is called the prayer of the public one, who prays for the public, for the well-being of their public, and also in a way that is acceptable in the world in corporeal channels in practice. Yeah, like rites. That's why we have to open seminaries and spread the wisdom of Kabbalah everywhere, and so on. What he writes, that's what we have to do that too in practice, meaning both on the spiritual level, our thought, our desire, as well as the level of physical corporeal actions in practice. Understand? Then if we say that we need to disseminate to the people in a moderate, gentle way, moderate and gentle, I mean not that we're going to wait in 5 more years for it. By subtle and gentle, I mean that we have to search for such ways that the person who is ill, who is broken, who is incapable, will accept what's good for him in a way that otherwise he won't. Just like for a sick person, you prepare the food for him in a certain way. You make it more liquid, let's say, or not that fat. Alright, so you have to prepare. That's up to you. You have to prepare it for the people in a way that they can swallow. But not that you're waiting, or you're not waiting like with a patient. You don't wait. You give him as quickly as possible them the best possible thing you can give him, but in ways that he can take it, that he can absorb it better. So it's the same way. That's why I'm saying subtly and slowly. I mean considering what they're capable of, but doing the maximum possible maximum with a concern that the most will be absorbed. What does it mean to come and tell them that, to use soft words to open it up as a hopeful future? Because bit by bit we see that not in economics, not in security, not in fanship from the world, or even just as a state, or even in the ordinary corporeal existence that we are in this world, like a part that has that is unnecessary, and the world hates it and degrades it, and this thing is becoming as if clear and logical. So explain the reason for this to everyone. It's a law of nature. We are all exist. We were all existing in nature. And the law of nature is that the entire human nature we have outside our beastliness. So we have this additional humanity in us. All of this human part of the world has to be in adhesion with the Creator. And we have to cause that. And we do have a method for it that helps the human part of everyone across humanity and in each and everyone to achieve equivalence of form with the Creator, by which a person feels in addition to his beastly level, and even in his best beastly level he feels tranquil, eternal and at peace. We have the method of how to be happy, and that's what we have to show to everyone, first and foremost to our nation, because it is going to suffer more than everyone now, and it needs to know when there's suffering why, in order to realize this method first of all, and then present it to other nations. The Creator himself, as if cannot give the Torah to all the nations, bring humanity to this lofty degree of existence, and only through us it can happen. That's it. It's an ideology. It's ideology of course. Yeah, it's an ideology that stems from the general law of the world. It's not that you're looking and thinking what can you be, or according to what method you want to live, rather it is carved into nature, and You cannot escape it. You're explaining to them you're explaining this as laws like physics or chemistry. You approach it as a scientist, not like some philosopher who thinks about it. Maybe it's like this or like that. You don't even approach them as a Jew. You just approach it as a scientist, completely, objectively independent of anything. You come to show, here's the world, here's how it works, here's why it was created, here's the goal it needs to reach, and by what corrections, what's called processes. It comes from its beginning to its end. You explain it to them like a scientist from the side. You want to accept it or not, that's your business. I'm just explaining what's going on. Like you've seen something in a microscope and you explain it to the world. Some germ or something harmful or useful, and how to use it. And that's what you're explaining in a completely objective, cold manner. When you explain it like that, independent of yourself getting nothing out of it, they now need to translate it from information to emotion, because their life depends on it. Life and death, not just a little bit better or a little bit less. So they need to then accept it and do what they feel, what they want with it. If you are coming just as a scientist to tell them about facts, that approach is the healthiest. As I explained there in the lecture to the Russians in Moscow, oh, I'm here to explain what's going on. You understand these facts? Yes. So, look where it comes from. I drew the map of the world for them. Where we are. Where is this part? That part, they was clear to them. There was about 1,200 people there in the room. 400 immediately signed up to the groups. There were also elderly people. You understand, like all kinds. But 400 immediately went to groups to study. It was obvious. And I didn't say it in a way that, excuse me, that it's like this or like that. No, I explain it to them as science. It's facts without emotion. No emotion. Just calm down. Put the emotion aside and see what's going on. We're all in the same, we're all in the same boat. It's not going to help destroying anyone or somehow finding some remote place in Madagascar or Uganda or some Bijan or something I don't know part of the nation, or it's not going to work. Look how everything works, and it's accepted because people see how reasonable this is and how it comes from nature. We don't understand how much power we have in presenting this whole matter in a somehow certain and clear way. And how can we create such a balance where, although we tell people that they seem to be there at fault, really, but also make it so they don't run away. Laitman explains at the end of the introduction to the SOAR, every correction starts from within, from the innermost part within us. If you find within your point of grit in the Creator, and from that point you work towards yourself and towards the group, and with that point you can come out to the entire world. How many billions there doesn't matter. Then you can explain, and you can be right, and you can be certain, and there's no problem with that. As long as you have a point of hold on to the Creator, then all of reality is actually like a prayer for you. Yes. And why? What is bad about adding emotion to our explanation if it can attract an audience? What's the problem with adding emotion to our explanation? Because if you put emotion into it, you put yourself into it. You're empty vessels, or vessels that have received fulfillment. These are your own personal things. But when you explain intellectual things, you're referring to facts that are seemingly above the emotion. That even if the emotion of the person is for or against it, the facts are facts as if above reason. It's like above reason. If something is above your reason, then what can you do? It happens, whether I want it or not. But that's lore. It's reality. That's it. And then in such a way, You communicate to the other that these things don't depend on you and don't depend on him. They rather depend, they exist outside of you and him. You just give them facts, meaning the ability to see the law. Now you want to be against the law, inside it, in favor of it. That's up to you. All right, we can go into another round of troubles. And the person already translates it to his emotions on his own. I would say that's the best kind of dissemination. You are not impressed by these things, meaning you say them in a way that you are removed from the matter itself. Thither, you meaning it's like you're a machine that produces like a report. How to put it in? Yeah. Information. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you belong to the Israeli nations or nations of the world. Or maybe you're an alien that comes and says some angel from above that comes and tells them about what's going on. That's the best. Then everyone feels that you're independent. But to talk about it in such a way that you awaken their emotions specifically through being independent objective, that's the form we need to find in dissemination. But it depends on us, and it also doesn't depend on us. You'll see soon that life will be such that people will immediately feel that here you're really grabbing them by the innermost point. The information, the facts that come from me excite the public. That's how it's supposed to work. The matter is that the facts that will come out of you will be accepted both emotionally and logically as well, and they have to be accepted logically. Says that there were times after the and the word opposite the mind, but out of word opposite the heart. He says this in the article for the celebration of the conclusion of the Zohar, and in our times it works together, both mind and heart. Can you say it's 5050 in terms of percent? I don't know if to say 50/50, but essentially today the mind works more. We are closer to Ari than to Balto. That's why the time of Balto, the era of that whole time, is over, and now it's more of the era of the, and so we have to come through a rational explanation and show Kabbalah as a wisdom, as a science that truly engages with the structure of the world, its reason and purpose, how to detach myself if I am supposed to bring someone some emotion into the heart. How do I detach myself? Look, a person who engages in research asks me how you detach yourself from the research, how you do it. If you are interested in the research you're doing, let's say you want to quickly finish your PhD dissertation, then you'll start falsifying things, and sometimes they don't discover these things. There were even cases where people were given Nobel Prizes and then the mistakes were revealed afterwards. There were such cases. But the researcher, the scientist, has to be completely independent of the results. He examines nature that's outside of him. That's how we accept this in this world. Afterwards, we can also talk about how much his interest influences, but it influences things differently from the other direction. But if I want things to happen certainly in a certain way, then they happen that way. But when that happens, it happens through a law of nature, meaning it changes according to my desire. But how can I be independent? Because I want to know the world without any relation to my personal involvement in it. I want to know what is life and what's up to me. If I research through my own interest, it's the will to receive. So I'll research what's good for the will to receive. That's what everyone researches. But none of them can read the correct picture. I as if explained to them, guys, we by going away from our will to receive, we've reached the opening of the picture, the revelation of the picture of the world, some measurement from which we understand the true connections between the pieces of reality, how it's operated by the upper force, and how all the pieces are connected to each other, and look at what goal they exist for. We explain it like a scientist who revealed the system, the general law, and how it works in different ways. That's what you're going to explain. And certainly you have to be independent of Anything here and also your approach needs to be seen that way. I explain to the entire world, to Jews and non-Jews in all languages for free. I'm simply engaged in this like a scientist, a true scientist. You have to show this in all of your appearance as well. That here you don't exist in this picture, and then they perceive it this way. Too. It has nothing to do with religion, with a Jewish or Christian way of life. It has nothing to do with anything. It's simply the overall nature, which is revealed this way. But even science, when a scientist talks, he doesn't talk as a Jew or anything else. And even in chemistry and physics, emotion is brought in when teaching. But how things are taught, there's nothing you can do about it. Right now I can go to any Gentile and study, learn from him physics or chemistry. It has nothing to do with who I am, or what I feel about it. So I'm trying to understand what's the point of being independent. No, I don't want to talk anymore. It's nonsense. You need to think first and ask next. We're going to go to New York. It's really good time to gather the prayers of everyone, so that there will be flights and we'll be able to arrive there and be able to bring the society to every place. With our Congress in America, it's going to be around 200 people. We've already come close to 200. They're going to gather in a wonderful place in Pennsylvania, in a nature place. People are going to be coming there for the first time after many years to meet each other. Also new students and veteran ones, and since the there's never been such a gathering. So it's something very, very exciting, and we are in this feeling that there is none else besides him is going to accompany us and strengthen with us from now to the Congress and beyond it. Now we want to watch a clip by speaking exactly about the transition between this from there's none else besides him and who is good and does good. She's the topic of lesson number 2. Just before the clip we'll say another 2 words. Today we're going to work on lesson number 2 during the Congress, the topic of which is he is good that does good. Here in Pedarker, you should have papers with a text on them, with excerpt number 1 from lesson number 2 that we're going to work with today in the World Clear. You can open the study material and you'll have the excerpt in the study material, and we're really going to get into it. We're going to go through it 1 paragraph at a time. So let's listen to or redirect us to there is none else besides him, and he is good that does good, and we'll continue it is good and does good. To me not to. You brought me to. Right, he wants to participate, but you don't want to. He wants to participate. What can you do? This is what we learn. He wants to share with us. All our work is to reveal the Creator, meaning to come to the work of the Creator to discover what are his actions. Che. Okay. Broadcast the clip. Second clip. Why did remove the second part of the lesson he is good and does good. We first need to yearn for there is none else besides him, because he is good that does good. Has it's also in the will to receive, in the will to bestow. There is a lot of discernment, and that happens in many levels of revelation towards us. So we cannot yearn for yearning, for there is none else besides him. I do so from the beginning. I need to yearn for what I feel in my will to receive. Yeah. So there is none else besides him, that I connect myself to a single force, and that obligates me to be in connection with friends and to be in connection between us, that this one source acts on us, etc. So that is the work, and to reveal as a result of that there is none else besides him, and he is good that does good. So I reveal him as there is none else besides him, but he is good that does good. We reveal in the clay that is prepared and corrected. Whereas there is none else besides him, we can yearn for that, and that work can be in the shells in the state that we are now in. The truth is that when we started preparing the lesson. Today, the workshop, we went over excerpt number 1, which is a long excerpt, and we discovered many subtleties that we would like to all go through them together, and we should just notice every paragraph and every point. It's really special. Yes, we're going to read the excerpt one time, from the beginning to the end, and afterward we will go through it on the tables. This time let's just read it. We'll listen to it. We'll get washed by Rabasher's word, who speaks about the good who does good, and he opens the explanation of what is good. Who does good, what is the bad? This sentence that we're used to hearing many times here gives this different angle on this sentence and enters as if deeply into it. So let us now hear it, and then afterwards we'll work with it in the tables around. And tense we say, and all believe, etc. The good who does good to the bad and to the good. You should understand this in the work, meaning those who want to draw near the Creator, and you regard this as good, meaning that this is all they expect to be rewarded with a teaching with the Creator. Therefore, why should we interpret here to the bad and to the good? That is, why are they regarded as bad? If we are speaking of a person who wants to reach the good which he regards as a teaching with the Creator, and accordingly what do we regard as the degree of good? To understand this, we first need to bring in the purpose of creation, which we know is about doing good to his creations. Accordingly, it means that when we say, and all believe, etc., the good who does good, it means, as our sages said, that the conduct of the good is to do good, and yet we believe that he does good to the bad and to the good, meaning that the bad too will receive the delight and pleasure. According to the simple meaning, we should say that bad are those people who do bad to others, meaning that they are concerned only with their own well-being and not to bestow. Good are those people who like to do good to others. These are the people who are called good. For this reason, we should interpret the good who does good to the bad and to the good to mean that bad people who are immersed in self-love will also receive the light and pleasure. According to the rule, we learn that there was a restriction and concealment on the vessels of reception in order to receive that the light will not shine again in this place, and it will remain a space devoid of light, and that restriction is called first restriction, which will never be revoked, but only the second restriction will be revoked. But one who receives in order to receive will never receive. So how can does good to the bad and to the good be true? After all, they do not have vessels to receive the upper abundance called to do good to his creations. One said that there are two types of vessels in a person. 1. Vessels of bestow. 2. Vessels of reception, which Kabbalah calls anteriorum, which are vessels of bestow, and posterior vessels, which are vessels of reception. The vessels of bestowal are called good vessels, and there are people who can correct themselves only with vessels of bestowal. This means that only with vessels of bestowal can they direct their intention to be in order to bestow and not more. Others are rewarded with a higher degree, meaning that they can aim in order to bestow with vessels of reception. 2. According to the above, we should interpret the meaning of good who does good to the bad and to the good to mean that a person should believe that the Creator gives help from above. As our sages said, he who comes to purify is aided. Therefore, when they ask of the Creator to give him the strength to be able to direct his actions to be in order to bestow, to ask for a complete prayer, meaning that the Creator will help him have the power to overcome in order to bestow even over his vessels of reception, to so they will be in order to bestow. This is called to the bad, meaning to the vessels of reception, and to the good means vessels of bestow. Both of them should have the intention for the Creator. Now we can understand why it can be said of a person who wishes for the Creator to bring him closer to his work so he can aim his work for the Creator, that they are called bad. According to the above, it will mean that those who want the vessels of reception which are called bad Kim to also draw near to the Creator, we call them bad. It follows that when we speak of bad Kim that will be corrected in order to bestow, it is a higher degree than the good, since good means that he wants the Creator to give him the power to prevail over them and aim in order to bestow. Now we will move into a workshop in the rooms, in near and on the desks. Here, just go over each paragraph and discuss it freely. Each one can say something inspiring about their paragraph or ask a question. Anything that's relevant for each paragraph. Take about a minute for each paragraph, maybe even more. We have about 10 minutes for this workshop. I hope really go deep into it, because when we did that, we really saw things that we didn't see beforehand. This is the time to really get deeper into it, that this entire action is an act of connection. But let us also try to enter the text of Rabash, and afterward we want to hear things in a general assembly. So, please prepare yourselves from your scrutinies and impressions and inspirational things and questions. Okay, so let's read the first paragraph. We say, and all believe, etc. The good who does good to the bad and to the good. We should understand this in the work, meaning those who want to draw near the Creator and who regard this as good, meaning that this is all they expect to be rewarded with attention with the Creator. Therefore, why should we interpret here to the bad and to the good? That is, why are they regarded as bad if we are speaking of a person who wants to reach the good which he regards as addition with the Creator? And, accordingly, what do we regard as a degree of good? Does someone want to say something about this? It seems that he begins by inserting us into the internality of their matters. Also in the lesson we watch now, we spoke about this in a division that there is in the person. Let's see what he has to say. Onward. All right. So we see that he says that only those who yearn to come closer to the Creator expect this to be rewarded with the Creator, with attention with the Creator. These are the good. This is the example that we want to have conceived from the friends who constantly want to come closer to the Creator to expect attention, and accordingly we call everyone the greatest of their generation. Yes. And here he places a question. Why those who yearn for good are called bad? And then he explains it afterward. What is this discernment exactly between bad and good? Yeah. He begins kind of a research here. Just reading this paragraph makes me want to read all the article. On one hand, he sets this condition, so you just read that this is all they want to be rewarded with attention with the Creator. On the other hand, he asks, how can we say that people who want attention with the Creator are bad? If that's the case, then what is good? So, it's really a scrutiny, and we need to see where we are. Where's our desire, for whose sake? And down the article we'll keep talking about this in reception. Yes. First there's a definition of what is good, which is attention with the Creator, and then there's a question about the bad, which later he explains. But what's important is that attention with the Creator is good. So now we're going to read the second paragraph. To understand this, we first need to bring in the purpose of creation, which we know is about doing good to his creations. Accordingly, it means that when we say, and all believe, etc., the good who does good, it means, as our sages said, that the conduct of the good is to do good, and yet we believe that he does good to the bad and to the good, meaning that the bad too will receive their delight and pleasure. According to the simple meaning, we should say that the bad are those people who do bad to others, meaning that they are concerned only with their own well-being and not to bestow. Good are those people who like to do good to others. These are the people who are called good. For this reason, we should interpret the good who does good to the bad and to the good to mean that bad. People who are immersed in self-love will also receive delight and pleasure. That reminds me of a sentence that said in one of the workshops that I'm sick of self-love and I seek love as the medicine, as a remedy. So that's exactly this discernment. It exists in each and every one of us of the good and the bad of each one who wishes to love himself and give to himself and learns gradually and hears from Kabbalists and from friends that there are other ways and a method which is called the love of friends above reason in order to come closer in a correct manner, to come and see the Creator, the quality of this general love. I have a question here. He said that the bad too in the end, those who are immersed in self love will receive all the abundance. So why make an effort in the first place? Everyone will have the abundance. Anyway, it's nice what Rush does here. He as if raises all the definition, interpretations that people can give to good who does good, as if how we're supposed to think about it, and then later how the public can think about it, about how the bad people will accept it, and then he as if shatters the idols, where in the end he gives the true explanation. It's simply spiritual genius. It's a very, very special Rash. Yeah. Here he first of all answers, what are good, what are bad? And bad are those who do bad to others, and good are those people who like to do good to others. So that's the first interpretation. Afterwards, we'll get other interpretations. Let's read more. According to the rule, we learn that there was a restriction and concealment on the vessels of reception in order to receive, that the light will not shine again in this place and it will remain in a space devoid of light, and that restriction is called Timbit of first restriction, which will never be revoked, but only Timbit the second restriction will be revoked. But one who receives in order to receive will never receive. So, how can does good to the bad and to the good be true? After all, they do not have vessels to receive the upper abundance, called to do good to his creations. Again, according to the rule, we learn another paragraph. Next paragraph 1 said that there are 2 types of Kim vessels in a person. 1 vessels of bestowal, 2 vessels of reception, which calls antiorum, which are vessels of bestowal, and posterior vessels, which are vessels of reception. The vessels of bestowal are called good vessels, and there are people who can correct themselves only with vessels of bestow. This means that only with vessels of bestowal can they direct their intention to be in order to bestow, and not more. Others are rewarded with a higher degree, meaning that they can aim in order to bestow with vessels of reception. 2. He says here something interesting. Differentiates that there are people who can correct themselves only in the vessels of reception. What in vessels of bestowal? That there are people that can correct themselves only in vessels of bestow, and there are people who are rewarded with a higher degree that can correct themselves in vessels of reception, that they can do that with an intention in order to bestow. So it's not that everyone reaches that same degree at the end, or do they? The question is also, what does it mean that there are people, many, maybe there are people like, as in there are states, I don't know. Because concludes here, he says he talks about bestowing in order to bestow, and so basically what I want to say is that, well, it came to me automatically, but from the article it appears that the whole matter of intention begins to surface here. So, let's continue to scrutinize it. He as if says about the good and the bad. He says to the good and to the bad. And then he says that there are people who are good, which will only do good corrections in order to bestow, and there are people who have this additional option with an interpretation. Okay friends, sorry to cut you off. I look at you guys, and I see that there are tables who only started the school, who did only 1 paragraph, who managed 2, who managed 3, Who managed? 4. Okay. So we have a few. So let's start working. We're going to read a paragraph and we're asking the world Clay to switch on question marks as well. Let's go over it together. We're going to read one paragraph and then we will want to hear 1, 2, 3 discernments, insights or questions from the world Clay or from here, and let's try to flow together with this. Let's incorporate with the deficiency and collect efficiencies from each other and get into the article. Please begin. We say that all the believers, etc., are good to the good and to the bad, and we need to understand that in the matter of work, meaning those who wish to come closer to the Creator, where it is called good for them, where they only expect that they will be rewarded with coming to teaching with the Creator. Therefore, why should we interpret here to the bad and to the good? That is, why are they regarded as bad if we are speaking of a person who wants to reach the good which he regards as with the Creator? And accordingly, what do we regard as the degree of good? Please, who wants to share an insight? Yeah, when I read that, we reached an agreement that the excerpt speaks about a person who is in the degree of Adam, a human who is directed at the Creator, and good and bad is in relation to his intention is an intention, why he aims at the Creator in order to receive or in order to bestow the world. Clear you? 2, please. Okay, friends, so we concluded that we are vessels to bestow, and there is the intention to receive from myself, and that's a distinction that makes between the good and the bad. Anyone with the intention to bestow upon the Creator is closer to the Creator, and he should cover everything in the tent in order to pull the whole tea into that same place. Thanks, Morris. We'll continue to understand this. We first need to bring in the purpose of creation, which we know is about doing good to his creations. Accordingly, it means that when we say, and all believe, etc., the good, who does good, it means, as our sages said, that the conduct of the good is to do good, and yet we believe that he does good to the bad and to the good, meaning that the bad too will receive the delight and pleasure. Yeah, friends, and insight and inspiration. I think that he's trying to explain to us that bad are those who work in lishma, meaning that there is great exertion to discover the evil and try to correct it, and the good are those who work in lishma. We have a question. We're speaking about one person. So what does it mean that there are good and bad people within us? Who are they? Thank you. It's an excellent question. Someone else on excerpt number 2. In relation to the work to all the believers, the books, and all the teachers of the path, that the light that reforms in the recognition of the shattering is called good, and in relation to our work in the 10 his desire are called bad, those who are good to each other. Therefore, the definitions of good and bad are in order to benefit a Hungarian, Polish Creator. I will and we will bestow to everyone the goodies who are bestow, and we are bestowing the one who wants to bestow, and bestowing to the one who only wants to receive as well. It doesn't really matter because we do good with the Creator. We want to similar with him. No, they bestow to everyone, to the good and to the bad as well. Thank you. Thanks. I agree with the friend. Exit. Number 2 speaks to us on condition that we are people of faith. The key is that we believe, and then everything that is written about the bad and the good will work on us. Thanks. We'll go to the 3rd excerpt. You can hold the questions. According to the simple meaning, we should say that the bad are those people who do bad to others, meaning that they are concerned only with their own well-being and not to bestow. Good are those people who like to do good to others. These are the people who are called good. For this reason, we should interpret the good who does good to the bad and to the Good to mean that people who are immersed in self-love will also receive delight and pleasure. The question that's being asked here is, what is good and pleasure for each and every one? Is it through our eyes or through the eyes of the Creator? May that He tells us that the purpose of creation must be realized. Bad, good, never mind. The purpose of creation will eventually be realized, and we need to be confident that this is so. Thanks. PT 19 for the whole story talks about one person. We don't have a bad person or a good person, it's all within one person. We learn that in the beginning of the wisdom, we discover the bad in us. We have to turn this bad into good in it. A person can receive. The goal is to receive, but in order to bestow. And that's already the quality of bestow. That's my opinion. Maybe I'm speaking nonsense, but it's all about one person, not two people. That's the quality of that he talks about here. Keep going, guys. Thank you. Let's continue reading. According to the rule, we learned that there was a restriction and concealment on the vessels of reception in order to receive, that the light will not shine again in this place, and it will remain a space devoid of light, and that restriction, called first restriction, which will never be revoked, but only the second restriction will be revoked. But one who receives in order to receive will never receive. So how can does good to the bad and to the good be true? After all, they do not have vessels to receive the upper abundance, called to do good to his creations. Women 5. Good morning, friends. I'm sorry. I'm just from the excerpt. I wanted to ask, how did we enter bestowal in the 10 if we are uncertain about our vessels? Is that for good or for bad? How can we bestow in such a way where we can remember all the internality of ours, where we can only extract that which we learn? Now nothing more than that, as in general, there's a question here. How do we advance? Is the advancement from the degree of the bad to the good, or to the from the good to the bad? Or maybe there's something more complicated here. Interesting questions. More about this excerpt. When in Latin 26, we find ourselves with the vessels of reception, and how can we invert them into a desire to bestow? One said that there are two types of vessels in a person. 1. Vessels of bestow. 2. Vessels of reception, which Kabler calls antiorum, which are vessels of bestow, and posterior vessels, which are vessels of reception. The vessels of bestowal are called good vessels, and there are people who can correct themselves only with vessels of bestow. This means that only with vessels of bestowal can they direct their intention to be in order to bestow and not more. Others are rewarded with a higher degree, meaning that they can aim in order to bestow with vessels of reception. 2. We want to have 2 workshops. So, let's do just one workshop right now, just based on the excerpts we weave. Read how our relation towards the good who does good, mainly to the one who does good to the bad, and to the good during the work thus far, meaning not just in this lesson, but in general on the path. How has our approach, our relation to the bad and to the good, changed over the time? Our attitude has changed a lot. I don't even think the bad can even be rewarded with good, so we need to think, what exactly are the bad? How do these is bad? If I understand correctly, he afterwards says that even the vessels of reception can aim in order to bestow. So it seems that we start, that the starting state is the feeling of the bad, and then gradually there's a correction that brings us closer to the vessels of reception. To correct the vessels of reception, to me, it connects to what we learned in the first lesson when Love explained about Abraham and the more refined vessels that are corrected first, and then because of their incorporation, all of these also corrected because there's incorporation between. And so maybe that's the meaning of good and bad. Also the preparation excerpt that we heard at the beginning of this part, where from our corrupted state it is better to focus on there's none else besides him, because he is good that does good. We interpret that still in the will to receive, and there is none else besides Him makes us focus on the group and on the connection, and then through there is none else besides Him. Then we can reach. Here is the good that does good. But then we come to that part in the end. Here where the bad and the good are vessels of reception and vessels of bestow in people, that the vessels of bestow are the vessels that become corrected first, and then the bad vessels are the vessels of reception that also end becoming corrected, and that is the path from below upward. Yet, I too feel that a fundamental change has happened in me, in the sense that I really cannot read articles like that anymore, in the sense that they are people and different nations. It constantly takes me inwards the engagement in, he writes here. He implies in every point here. At the beginning of every paragraph he implies this, like paragraph number 5 here, where he says that there are 2 phases in a person. He gives these hints everywhere. He begins the article saying, we say and all believe that he's good, and does good to the bad and to the good, and we should understand this in the matters of work. So he says it in advance. I wish all those who study Jura, and all the people, we need everyone to be able and to have the desire to look at the internality of matters, the internality of the articles, the internality of the Torah, to look at them as if it speaks about them and about no one else. What became sharper was that we need to go deeper, more internally, in order to really feel what is bad and good in the eyes of a Kabbalist, and to feel how all these states go through a person to a tent. How the Kabbalist takes us through a process of development beyond the spiritual to spirituality, to the goal, to the end of correction. How they want to take us hand by hand on through these stages. Over time we develop a relation toward the goal, as he says that the goal is to do good to his creation. So we too gradually approach this quality, and as a result we build the right purposeful relation toward it. He defines that bad people who do bad to others, and then there are good people who do good to others. And then he also defines that good means coming closer to the Creator, and in that there is that good that does good is a concept that I need to attain to understand that doing good is doing good to the Creator, not some fulfillment where I find some desire that awakens in me, and that the Creator fulfills that's good. That does good, but good seemingly is something beyond our desire, which is to come closer to the Creator. In the excerpt in the beginning of said, we begin the work with there is none else besides Him. The good who does good is already a matter of revelation. If we begin to advance, and this is our starting point, that there's none else besides Him. Friends, we're obligated here to finish the lesson in another minute. We really see how Rabash speaks about 2 degrees in the person that are already in a spiritual process of good and bad within the person, not outside, but within the person who's on the process of correction. Let us see the last clip number 2, and then we will close this lesson with a workshop within it. Clip 2. He's good. He says that he's good, and good, that's good, says to me yes to you. No, he brings to a soul like him, so why doesn't he participate? Should he wants to participate, but you don't want to learn, he wants to participate. But that's what we learn, he wants to share with us that this entire activity, this entire work, that our entire work is to come to the work of the Creator, to reveal what are his actions. The work of the Creator is his actions. What do? We reveal his work. The worker of the Creator is the one who reveals the acts of the Creator. Friends, now we'll have a final workshop. Question: what does it mean to be a worker or to be a servant of the Creator? Said now, to be a worker or servant of the Creator, that it is someone who purified himself, received the correction from above, and then he sees that the Creator does everything that is the worker or servant of the Creator. Yeah, we prepare ourselves for the Creator to do the work on us. Yes, I have nothing to add in the meantime. You can repeat the same words. So they enter the heart to serve the Creator that we in the 10 constantly create this deficiency and yearning for the Creator to operate on us, to open our heart, to correct us, to bring us closer, to work on us. We constantly want to ask this. We want to yearn for this together. I also remembered what Rav once said, that if you want to be a servant of the Creator, then do not interfere with him. Working on you, correcting you, just don't interfere with him. Maybe with respect to the long excerpt we studied together, the servant of the Creator is someone who needs to identify the bad and the good within him, see how they push him away, what forces operate, and he wants to approach the Creator and feel what the real good is. And by this he wants to serve the Creator. He said we also have to believe that we about what is good, that he is good and does good. So we need to try to acquire new vessels in our work, not the usual feelings, but feelings of nearing the Creator. Yeah, what I understood is that each person needs to reach there is none else besides him. This point begins the work because it's easy, and even in uncorrected states we can work with that, and then afterward he reveals that he is good. That does good. His purpose, his whole purpose in life is to allow the Creator to do carry out his plan, his goal, the purpose of creation, and he does everything that's needed, whether it is to allow himself for it to help someone for it, or to disseminate for it. That the intention is for the Creator to have a channel by which to expand throughout human reality and bestow. Yes, when we advance to the goal, when we serve the goal, Sam writes in the about the purpose of creation, where is to reveal which is to adhere to the Creator, or to bring others to adhere to the Creator. A servant of the Creator is someone who wants his work to be for the Creator. He wants to be in order to bestow. So all his desire, like we read in the first excerpt, will be directed toward the Creator. What else can I add? Others pray to feel what the Kabbalists intend when they say this phrase, the servant of the Creator, and dress into the upper mind, which can really explain this path to us. How can we be servants of the Creator? How can we walk on the Kabbalists' path? Friends, now we will read the Tsar immediately after the interlude. Telephone. We are reading from Zohar for all portion after the death article, after the death of the 2 sons of Aaron. 1 item 1 for all. After all, after the death article, after the death of the 2 sons of Aaron. 1 It is written, and the Lord spoke to Moses after the death of the 2 sons of Aaron. And the Lord said to Moses, speak to Aaron, your brother, it is written, and the Lord called Moses and spoke to him, and it is written, and to Moses he said, come up to the Lord. Where beginning of the verse is the Lord called Moses, and to Moses he said, are the degree of Malot. Where continuation of the verses, and the Lord spoke to him and come up to the Lord, are the degree of here too. And the Lord spoke to Moses is a degree of din, judgment called speech afterward. And the Lord said to Moses is the degree of the quality of mercy called saying. And the reason why it is written in both of them, the Lord, is that they are regarded as the same, and everything was composed from the same root. That is the 2 above mentioned degrees. Judgment and mercy are of the same value and from the same root, which is called, it is written, serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. It is also written, serve the Lord with joy, come before him with singing. These verses contradict one another, since here it says to serve him with fear and trembling, and there it says to serve with joy and singing. However, serve the Lord with fear, since any work by which one wishes to serve one's master requires fear. First to fear him, and because of the fear of his master, he will later be rewarded with performing the commandments of the Torah with joy. This is why it is written, What does the Lord your God ask of you? But to fear the Lord, and by that you will be rewarded with everything. 3. And rejoice with trembling. One must not be exceptionally glad in this world in worldly matters, but in matters of Torah and the commandments of the Torah, one should be glad. And after he is not glad with worldly matters, he will find that he will perform the commandments of the Torah with gladness. As it is written, serve the Lord with joy. For serve the Lord with fear. Fear means, as it is written, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. It is also written, fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. The Creator is called fear of the Lord, which is one who wishes to work in serving his master, begins and aims his work to unite the name of his master with fear. It is so because in fear, meaning in Malat, is the beginning of the work from below upward, since the first from below upward is 5. It is written after the death of the 2 sons of Aaron, and then it writes, with this shall Aaron come to the holiness. What is the connection between the verse after the death and the verse with this? Shall Aaron come?